Hi, Meg. Can you hear me? Nope, not yet.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Tim, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Tim, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. How are you? Oh, I guess I can take this off now.
Good. Meg's still mute.
Okay,
Looks
hi.
like she just got unmuted.
Can everybody hear me?
Hey, Meg.
How are
We
you?
got you. Yep. I'm well.
Good.
I'm well. It's nice to see you guys.
Good
Got
to
a
be
full
seen.
screen. Good to see you guys. Yeah.
Yep, certainly is.
Yeah.
Yep. So it is just about 7. Hi, Lauren.
Hello.
I know Laurel texted me. She said she might be a few minutes late. She's reading to a group for Read Across America today.
Across America.
So it is 7 p.m. I'm going to call the meeting to order and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance if you'd all join.
Pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America,
And
to the republic
for which it
for
which
stands,
stands
one
one
nation, under
nation,
God,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're all.
Hey.
All right.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. Meg Scatta.
For a second?
I'll second it.
Tim?
Tim Lavoie.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Approval of consent agenda. It's our minutes from February 16th. Is there a motion?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Tim? Is there a second?
Tim.
I'll second it. Meg Scatta. I just
Okay.
had one change, and it was really a word, but that confusing resolution or amendment, the friendly amendment was not a friendly motion. It was a friendly amendment to the motion. So that word motion just has to be changed to amendment. And that's it. Everything looks good otherwise.
Okay. So would that be an amendment or what would we
Nancy will
call that?
she'll just strike
make
out
the
the word
correction?
and she'll just make the correction. Exactly.
Okay.
I
so
didn't
is
catch it
there-
in time.
Does that change the motion to approve the consent agenda is my question. I
No,
guess.
No.
Okay.
no.
Any other comments? No? All in favor?
I
Okay. Audience of citizens?
There is no one for public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. Student rep reports. I think I saw Sean. No? Thought I did.
I thought
Here.
she was just there a bit ago.
I thought so
Yeah,
too.
she was new.
Or Justin. I don't see Justin either. Uh-oh. Maybe it's the wind. Let's see. Maybe she's on the second page. The wind is a lot.
Yeah, no, they're not. Either one of them.
Okay, so hi,
Oh,
Lauren.
Sean is. Sean's down at the bottom. She's
Oh.
connecting right now.
Okay, good. Did
Hi,
we
Sean.
lose you, Sean?
Hi, everyone. Sorry about that.
That's
So
okay.
it's just me for tonight. What I have to report is tomorrow night is a big night for the seniors because it's their capstone night. So they're going to be presenting all their projects. And the juniors last week turned in their capstone proposals. So it's been a pretty big week in terms of capstone and those projects. And then also recently, clubs have started meeting in person for the first time this school year. So that's been very exciting. I know that kids are very appreciative that that was able to happen thanks to Miss Lawson and our administration.
That's great.
A little feeling of normalcy. It's nice, isn't it?
John, is it
Mhm.
starting
Yeah,
to feel
exactly.
normal? It is feeling normal, right? It's starting
A
to
little
get there.
bit.
Except for the masks
and
and the
there.
social distancing. It's
Here and there. But seeing people face to face is nice. even with the mask and social distancing, I think anyway. Okay, thank you for that. Communication and updates, superintendent's report.
Excellent. All right. Hello, everyone. So I have a few updates. While I'm going through a couple of these updates, Dylan, if you could unmute and turn on Kate Lawson's camera, I'm going to let her share some very exciting news. But before we get to that, I included with your communications first, while we're waiting for Kate to get on. We have the March 16th is the Board of Selectmen budget workshop with us. I just wanted to make sure we all understood, because that's the night of our board meeting too. And if I remember correctly, the way it worked, it was we opened our meeting, then we adjourned our meeting and went over to join. And tonight it would be through Zoom, whereas in years past it was kind of go over to the auditorium. But I guess for us it would be we'll start our meeting, adjourn our meeting, jump over into their meeting for the Zoom, and then come back to our meeting. Is everybody comfortable with that? That's for the night
Yep.
of Tuesday, March 16th at 7 p.m.
Yep. I assume our docket, I think I'm in court, our agenda will be lighter on that evening.
Yes. Yep.
Good.
Yep. Good. Okay. So I did include that notice in the communications section. And then I also included, I updated you on the enrollment report. Couple things to note on that. Our PVLA numbers have gone down slightly. We have had more students come back, which is great, particularly in the third grade. The numbers are still robust enough that we are justifying and maintaining the sections with dedicated teachers teaching those. But sort of as we anticipated, as people start to get more comfortable with how things are going in the schools, we are starting to see some students come back. So that is reflected in the monthly enrollment numbers that I updated you with, and they're in your Google Drive. So now for some very exciting news, and I'm delighted to see Miss Lawson here on the screen. Why don't I just kick it over to you, Kate? I don't want to steal any thunder. I think that this is a tremendous recognition for the high school, and I want you to tell everybody all about it.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Britton. So good evening, board members. I am so pleased to be able to share with you that Portland High School has been named a recipient of the AP Computer Science Female Diversity Award for the 2019-2020 school year.
Great.
The Computer Science Principles class is a relatively new course offering at Portland High School, taught by Mrs. Patty Blodgett. It's college level, it's project based, and the students explore big ideas about computer science and different programming languages. The criteria for this honor was enrollment of greater than 50% female. And while our sample is small but mighty, I am proud to share that all 8 students in the class passed the AP exam, continuing our streak of a 100% pass rate for the second year in a row. Additionally, one of our students, Haley Sroka, was recently named the 2021 Connecticut winner of the National Center for Women and Information Technology Award for Aspirations in Computer Programming. This award is one of approximately 1,200 given nationally and recognizes Haley's aptitude and interest in STEM, especially in information technology. It's important to highlight that this accomplishment stands on great building blocks, from Mr. Toussaint's courses in the middle school to all the STEM and engineering classes at the high school, and the range of opportunities available to all students in our career and technical education department. Please join me in congratulating Mrs. Blodgett, Haley, and all the students on these accomplishments and their academic successes. I couldn't be prouder.
That's great.
Congratulations to all.
Awesome job.
That's wonderful.
Very proud of them. That is
Fabulous.
Any additional communications, Charles?
All right. So let me keep moving on. Kate, thank you very much. Do let everybody in that program and Patty know how proud we are of them. That's awesome. That's a real feather in the cap. I'm excited to see that.
Absolutely, I will.
So let me move on then to some updates for you on our reopening. As I've been doing, I've been starting with the update on the infection rates, the status report that we get every couple of weeks, and the numbers are still going down and staying down, which is the good news. So the most recent data that I have for you, which was updated February 26th, shows Portland at 15.4 cases per 100,000. That's still considered a red alert status district by 0.4. So if we go down just a little bit more, we'll move out of the red. And I spoke with Russ tonight, and he's looking ahead and seeing us heading out of red shortly. So this is good news. Compared to the rest of the Chatham Health District, we're in pretty good shape. I will tell you, Colchester was at 17.5 per 100,000. East Haddam moved out of red. They're at 13.5. East Hampton, is still getting bumped around a little. They're at 33.3. Hebron dropped out of red and is in orange, 12.8. Marlborough, 16.8. Portland, again, 15.4. And the average for the Chatham Health District is 19.9. So those numbers are still have come down, and they're staying down. Middlesex County is at 21.6 per 100,000. Hartford County is at 20.2 per 100,000, and the state of Connecticut is at 22.8 per 100,000. So there's still plenty of virus out there, but the numbers are certainly down from where we were around the holidays this year, and hopefully they stay that way. The other thing that's included in this report that's a new addition, a delightful new addition, is Ross is now updating us on the percent of population that has received the first dose of the vaccine. So here in Portland at this time, again, this is the February 26th, 18.7% of the population received at minimum the first dose, compared to Colchester, 17.6%, East Haddam, 16.7%, East Hampton, 16.9%, Hebron, 16.6%, Marlborough, 18.1%. Again, Portland, 18.7%. The Chatham Health District as a whole is 17.4%. And currently the state of Connecticut is at 15.5% of the population has received the first dose. So what do we want to see? We want to see the numbers of infections keep going down and these vaccination rates keep going up. And we are on that path. So more good news there. I think the light at the end of the tunnel is getting brighter.
I'm just curious, is that percent of vaccinated folks out of the total population, or those eligible to be vaccinated, like 18 and up or 16 and up, whatever it was? Does it include children in the fact?
Percent? It's percent of total population.
It is. Awesome.
That's how Russ is reporting.
That's really great.
Yeah. It's happening. It's happening. It's we're seeing it in the numbers.
Great.
So update you on the current numbers of individuals in the district who are currently subject to quarantine. We right now at the high school, we have 2 staff members and 1 student who are quarantining. 1 student at the middle school, 2 students at Brownstone, 1 staff member and 2 students at Gildersleeve, 3 students at Valley View. So there are 3 staff and 9 students district-wide who are subject to quarantine periods. I can tell you that all of these I'm aware of are a part of exposures in the community, not in the school. So we haven't had much exposure in the school that's forced quarantine. It's mostly coming from youth sports and other activities in the community. But we're in pretty good shape, right? We're doing okay. So as you know, we're rolling. We're open fully, K-12. Everybody's in every day. Winter athletics is underway. We've started clubs and activities, as you've heard from Sean tonight. I've visited every school this week, and again, I am really impressed with the fidelity and consistency with which the implementation strategy, mitigation strategies are being implemented. I'm proud of our students. They're doing a great job, and our teachers and our administrators are are doing well, and I'm delighted that we're back in. You know, I continue to read about other districts that are struggling with these decisions, and you know, anybody that would call us, I would see us as a model. Now, of course, Portland is very different. We're smaller. You know, we have more space than some districts, but I think we're in good shape, and I'm very happy and pleased that our students are back fully, and that we're being successful, and we're not seeing outbreaks, and things are going well. So to that end, I have some exciting news tonight. As you know, educators in the state of Connecticut, and that's not just certified teachers, that's anybody who works in a school, bus drivers, secretaries, custodians, paraprofessionals, food service workers, teachers, are now eligible for vaccination. So most people are scheduling vaccination appointments now through a system called VAMS. We've loaded our rosters, and anybody who is 55 and older or an educator is able to go into VAMS and schedule an appointment for vaccination. Now, anybody who has tried to do that will tell you that I've been joking, saying it's like getting Aussie tickets in the 1980s. It is very competitive. There are lots of people that want these appointments and very few appointments that are available today, but they're coming. The vaccines are on the trucks, and they're rolling into Connecticut. And I'm excited to tell you that we have a vaccine clinic for our faculty and staff scheduled for Friday, March 12th. So Friday, March 12th is our professional development day. So we will work our professional development activities around vaccinations, and all of our faculty and staff will get their first dose of the Moderna vaccine on March 12th. As you know, you have to get a second dose of the Moderna vaccine. So we have a second dose clinic scheduled for Friday, April 9th, which is the day before our April vacation. So the plan is now, that's currently on the schedule for a full day. What I would like to ask you tonight is to allow us to make that an early dismissal day for students. So it's the day before April vacation. Students will dismiss on the partial day. And then in the afternoon from noon on, we'll schedule our teachers to get their second shot of the Moderna vaccine. It also works out well that it's on a Friday. We are hearing that there's a percentage of people that feel icky after they get their second shot. So, you know, scheduling your second dose on a Monday is probably a bad idea if you don't have a lot of subs available Tuesday, but certainly scheduling it on a Friday would put us in a better position to not have the school day impacted. So later in the meeting tonight, I'll ask for your consideration of a motion to allow us to make March 9th the second dose clinic. I would also mention that these are happening very quickly. Literally 20 minutes before I walked into our meeting tonight, I got a call from Russ. Russ has some ideas for some additional clinics that our faculty and staff would be eligible to attend, especially for those who aren't available on either the 12th or the March 12th or April 9th. So we're trying to give as many opportunities as we can to our folks to get their shots and be vaccinated. So that's all really good news, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Charles, I have a quick question. Do you know how many doses will be available on the March 12th clinic? Are there enough doses available to accommodate all of our educators in the district?
There is no guarantee, but Russ is highly confident. Especially what it may boil down to is we may find ourselves in a position where that March 12th clinic has the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So between the Johnson & Johnson, the Moderna, and the Pfizer, you know, Russ is 90% confident that we will have enough for all of our faculty and staff. He really, I think it's, in his opinion, it's just going to be a question of which vaccine, which is interesting because if it's the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, then we won't need the second dose. And I may be back saying, hey, we can have a regular day on the 9th. So things are moving quickly. It's just, that's where we are.
And will you be including our bus drivers in this as well? Are they invited to participate? Great.
Everybody, food
Everybody
service
is.
workers, custodians, bus drivers, paraprofessionals, secretaries, teachers, everybody. And also childcare workers in the community.
Mhm.
So we've loaded up the rosters and they include everyone.
Great.
Perfect.
Hey, Charles, are we getting any people that are saying they want to opt out of getting vaccinated?
We are. It's not large numbers, but I did canvass the faculty and staff, and I would say roughly in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 people have indicated that they are not going to be vaccinated, either on the advice of their physician or for reasons that are known to them. It's a small number, though.
Yeah. But as a board, how are we going to address that? Or is the superintendent?
Yeah, that's a deep breath moment, right? So I would phrase that question this way. Is there any inclination on our part that we should make this a requirement, right? And this is a very hot button topic, as we know, in general about vaccines in the state, and certainly specifically about this one. There are a lot of different opinions about it. It is being talked about widely at the state legislature level, and it is being discussed by Shipman and Goodwin and other attorneys. I'm not prepared to make a recommendation about whether we require our teachers, our faculty and staff to be vaccinated at this point. But it is something I'm keeping an eye on, and we'll defer to the advice of experts and legal counsel cross that bridge.
I'd like to personally, if we could in the future, give us an update on the impact that's going to have to our plans as far as, continuing additional costs and things like that to, make that accommodation to those that don't wish to. Are we going to still have to have additional classes that we may not need to, things of that nature? So we got to assess the impact as well.
Yes,
I
we
would
do.
just comment that the CDC says school reopening, teachers, teachers getting a vaccination are not going to impact school reopenings or continuing opening of schools. And quite frankly, until 600 million people in the United States are either building their own immunity or having been vaccinated, we're not going to go away from masks or social distancing or, some of the mitigation procedures that we're doing right now. You could be a carrier of COVID, even if you've been vaccinated, you won't be sick, but you could still be spreading it. And we don't know enough about it right now. So I think masks and social distancing probably are still sensible ways to make sure that we're not reinfecting or infecting each other.
Correct. But if you heard President Biden today, he said by May, he expects to have enough doses
I know.
for the whole country. So our expectation should be that at that point, we could not get rid of the mask type of thing, but we should be to full in-person teaching and staff and students.
I think that's an issue that we can kind of continue to monitor as time goes on. I hear what you're saying, but I don't know that that's anything that we can make any pronouncements about now.
Right.
It certainly is something I agree we need to continue to keep an eye on, but I would anticipate that the PVLA will be open through the end of the school year. I mean, by the time we get to the point where everyone's vaccinated, if it's end of May, that's only a couple more weeks. So I think it's important that we continue to monitor and look forward to, how that kind of pans out and what we can anticipate maybe for next year. But I don't think that
Right.
there's much we're going to be able to trim in terms of those additional.
Yeah, I agree.
costs.
I was just asking for updates.
Right. Yep.
Right.
Makes sense.
Well, because it certainly makes a
And
difference.
I don't know if anybody
Yeah,
else
and
saw
there's
this. I was just gonna say the Cape Journal that most recently came out had, you know, how they do that, the Nutmeg Board, the Connecticut Board of Education that does everything wrong.
Those
There was an
jerks.
interesting, yeah, there was an interesting write-up in the last one where the Nutmeg Board was dealing with that very issue,
Right.
Dave, about vaccination, about teachers requiring that of teachers, and they lay out
Right.
the legal arguments,
Yeah.
you know, against that essentially, that mandate.
Yeah.
It was an interesting read. You should check it
Yeah.
out if you still have it. I think I might still have my copy. I can try and take a shot and send it around.
Yeah, I
Oh, well,
read
if you
that
wanna
as
give it to
well,
me,
and
I'll
it
put it
is
in
a
the Friday
steep,
email.
yeah, it's a steep hill to climb if you're going to try and tell people they have to get a vaccine. That's,
Well, we'll just
We'll
see
go
where it
slow
goes.
and we will defer to legal counsel on that one too.
Yep.
There's a lot of layers on
Yep.
it.
Yep.
All righty, so pretty much all good news. We are heading absolutely in the right direction. I feel like we're in a good place. I feel like we've handled everything as well as we can. Our kids are back. Our teachers are about to be, faculty and staff are about to be vaccinated. It's a good day. I'm guardedly optimistic for sure.
well, and thanks to you and your whole entire team, you know, steering the ship through difficult times.
All righty, so that's it for my reopening update. I think we're about to get some more good news too. So do we
Is
want to
Stephanie
move
with
over
us?
to Stephanie?
Oh, yes, I see her now. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi.
Hi, Steph.
Hello.
Hi, Steph.
So
So, which would you like to start with? The COVID expenses or the authorized spending report? Or are we on the memo?
I'm on
Let's do the
authorized.
memo.
My other computer is kind of disconnected, so I lost all my documents that were up
memo?
on here.
Yeah, I don't see a memo.
I don't have a memo.
There was no memo that I saw, at least in the Dropbox.
It was on
Unless it's a
Google
secret.
Drive.
Well, I'm sorry. Yes, Google
Well, I tell
Drive.
you what,
I'm still
Stephanie,
using the old terminology
what-
with the new technology.
It's okay.
Do you have it?
Why don't we follow the
No, I
agenda,
don't have it.
Stephanie? The first one on here is COVID relief.
There's only
Okay.
two documents. There's COVID relief and authorized spending report.
So looking at my color, I tried to make it as easy as possible. I know it's a lot of colors,
It is.
but it was the best way for me to know what was being spent under which source of funding.
Yeah.
Because with the first 70,382, you know, it was kind of by object. But for the larger one, the 226,136 CFR, Corona Relief Fund, I had to break it down by personnel and non-personnel, cleaning, health, safety. So it was easier for me to explain it that way and how it was spent by doing the colors. But it all adds up beautifully. But I'm happy to say that as of right now, we have spent all of the current funding that we've received. So total of $296,519. We will still have some unfunded items, and those would be items that are in red. I don't know if we talked about yet, but the new ESSCR2 funding that we've been awarded is the $312,000.
That's not on here, is it?
No, well, a portion of it is because you could use it from the beginning of COVID through September 2023.
Mhm.
So we have allotted to pay for the rest of PVLA with some of that funding. So out of the 312, we're going to need, it's the highlighted in yellow, the ESSCR2, so that's the new money. So we're going to use probably about $75,000 if PVLA remains open through the end of the year. So then we'll have the remaining of the 312 left from that, because I feel that we could cover the rest of the expenses that we have unfunded with our balance that we've had.
Some of
because
these
the
line
free-
items, yeah.
You can see down under the grand total that we have covered fully all of our unbudgeted overages with our freeze. So those are basically taken care of, plus a little bit more. So overall, we're looking, for the time that we're in, we're looking pretty good.
Good.
Is there any questions about any of the expenses on here? Why we purchased them? You know, how it was spent?
So just a quick question about the remaining money. We wouldn't want to put that on there and show like a credit saying that, hey, we've got this much left to go to spend?
I
Of
don't
the
necessarily
312?
I don't think we necessarily want, because we have till 2023 to use that, and there's still assessments that have to be done to figure out what's going to be used for what. So we don't want to put the whole credit to this year, because I don't think that's what the intention of what Charles wants to do.
It wasn't.
And what I suggest we do also with the money.
Which is what?
It's about
I would say-
237,000, is it, Stephanie?
Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily saying use it this year, just kind of put it on the paper so we kind of see what's still left to go for the next 2 years. Because I assume this is going to be a running document we're going to use, you know, through the next 2 years.
I could
Stephanie,
make
let
it
me
even
talk
more colorful.
Yeah, no.
Well, I think it's just, I mean, this document's gonna lose usefulness once that's all
Yeah, 'cause
settled.
basically
Paid for it.
everything's spent as of this point. So whether you know,
So that remainder of the money that's good through September 23 kind of is its own spreadsheet now. It's like,
Right.
all right,
Yeah,
we have
okay.
this number,
Do a new one.
and then we track it from there and how it gets used,
Right.
right? Is that kind of,
yep, because then
take that
there'll be
70
the-
some odd thousand off the top? And
Yep, because then there'll be the
Makes
fourth
sense.
round of funding. So, you know,
And
that'll get
our
added.
current budget that we're proposing, we did not put in any additional monies if we were to continue to have COVID in our lives and have to continue some of the things that we've done this year. So that kind of gives us a little insurance for next year, I think. Does it
Yeah.
not?
Correct.
I think
That's
it's,
the intention anyway.
isn't it to
Can't-
help
can't
students
use
catch up
it-
that have lost
Right.
their,
We can't
it
use
does
it
have-
to
yeah.
replace our operating expenses.
Right.
But if we have summer school, extensive summer school that needs to be done, you know, for anything in addition to help our kids come back to a normal, somewhat school life, that's
Right.
basically what that's intended for.
Right.
Yeah. So we'll just have a
Yeah, so
separate
I would just-
spreadsheet to track that.
I think that's great
Right,
news,
I would just
Stephanie.
add,
Thank
I
you.
think, yeah, we're heading into it, some discussions this spring. You know, I don't think we're ready to have them tonight. I think we need to give it till at least the next board meeting or likely the first board meeting in April. If, and it's not done yet, and I never count chickens before they hatch, right? There's another bill working its way through Washington right now that may direct more funding our way, potentially significantly more funding our way. Certainly we know what we have, which is the part of the $312,000, of which 75,000 we know we need to cover the PVLA if we run it through June, which I think we have to anticipate. But what I'd like to do is take the next couple weeks, wait and see how this bill makes its way through the Senate and would be passed, have a sense of what that new funding source is. And then Stephanie and I will certainly be coming to you with some recommendations and ideas for how that funding would be used. I think it's just a little premature to speculate tonight, except to say that without doubt, those funding allocations are for us to help students who fell behind because of the pandemic catch up. And we've already started some discussions about how we want to do that, including developing some really exciting summer school programs that you're going to hear Eric Martin talk to you about tonight, as he and I have already started the process of how we would identify students who were disadvantaged because of the March shutdown and our adjustments in different models this year to support those kids this spring, over the summer, and into next year, which is really the spirit and intent of that funding.
Thanks. Great.
Any other COVID questions?
Oh, you know, I gotta go back and find that. So when you, on that spreadsheet, the COVID expense sheet, it, you don't have column letters there, but it's in red. It's the estimated remaining COVID that we need to cover. It's like 98,050.
Yep.
How does that number figure in?
So that's the red highlighted numbers above.
Right.
And it's projected, it's great to hear that the clinics now will be on a Friday and also a day before vacation. So that's less subs we probably would need if teachers needed to call out.
So that's an estimate of what you
Um,
think
you know-
we could and need to spend.
Correct. Well, I know the teaching position because I know the teacher that's out, I'm assuming was not going to come back this school year.
Mhm.
So I know the teaching extra cost will be the personnel cleaning for athletics. It's supposed to only really be for the winter sports, but
Right.
if there's no school one day, so it's an estimated off of 10 hours a week for 10 weeks. So I think to date we've spent $1,000 on the extra cleaning for that. The athletic coordinator, the additional sections of PE, all COVID related.
So that 98,000, it's the total of just the red numbers in that column above it. Is that right?
Yes, that's
Okay,
what's.
that was all I was trying to figure out where that came from. Okay, so it's
Yep,
just.
and that's now to be covered through still our freeze that we have going on.
Right.
Which 90,000 isn't terrible. There's people that
No,
are
I
way
mean,
worse.
There's school systems in much more hot water than we are.
Mhm.
Yep.
Nice, thank you.
Welcome.
Job, Stephanie.
And each month I'll still do this document if you want, but I'll update with actuals. I'll do a line that'll say, actually spent to date, and then, projected left, and see how close I am in the end.
Just don't keep moving the goalposts.
I know. Well, fingers crossed that everything seems to be going in the right direction. So
That's good. Well, we made some tough decisions when we needed to, and it's worked out for us. It's really fortunate.
That is true. Any other questions on the COVID spending? Okay. The authorized spending report.
So this is the same document again that I do in between my quarterly report. Again, as Charles said, if you just look at the far right number, we're really only negative in unemployment, which we assumed, and our special education lines, which will be offset by excess cost. So again, we're doing a very good job with how we've been managing our money. As long as no other curveballs get thrown at us, we should be able to end the year in a fairly good position, being able to cover what's left. And then, seeing how we can help, purchase some things that need to be purchased.
So are we clear on what the excess cost is going to be for this budget year, or is this part of that whole thing with the governor's proposed budget that's still kind of up in the air?
Nope, excess cost is the special education
Oh,
funds.
okay.
So
The
that's
other one. Got it.
you're thinking of the ECS.
Right.
So excess cost will be based off of our submissions in the state system for our high need students. And we've received our first payment for that, which is about 75% of what we got last year. And then we get the final payment in May. But we're estimated to be about 340,000 we should be receiving for that.
Good. Any other questions?
Yeah, on the coaching salaries, we're still 70% of the, a little less than that, of the original total. Does that take into account, I mean, is that, this is like year to date what we've spent, right? Does, so the spring sports and
Haven't been paid yet.
whatnot, right, they haven't been paid, so that'll come out
Yep,
from
that
there.
comes out, I believe, in May. So, fall has been paid and the prorated winter has been paid.
And then the dental, and I'm sure this question's been asked before, and I just can't remember the answer, is that we have an 81,000 for the dental, but it's still available totally. Do we just pay that once a year or something, or what?
Yeah, so since we're self-funded, usually there's just a transfer done at the end of the year that the town does. You know, they track the submissions and the credits that we get and the payments on the backside. So that's how what we actually budget based off of what our remaining fund balance is at the end of the previous year. That's why some years it'll be lower. If we have a, you know, a hefty fund balance in our dental, then, you know, we can make it a little bit lower, but our claims have been high. And I think it was the year that kids got to go back on the insurance or something when you guys switched. I think it's the first year I came. It's kind of been a little bit higher since then. So it should be roughly around between $80,000 and $85,000 at the end of the year. So when I do my projections, that's what I put in, you know, for my number. It just won't show on here until they charge it.
So the town administers that those
Correct.
funds, and so they could report to you what's used to date on this line, or no, that's.
I can do an analysis. I mean, they're busy. They were busy
Yeah,
doing their
yeah,
budget
that's
too.
fine. Yeah, no, and that's
And
fine.
it is something that I can do because I know how to, you know, read it and the ins and the outs and everything. And I try to, like I said, I try to do that for my projection that I give to Charles. But I can try and see, you know, if you guys want an update on that, if that's something that I can get.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I know for me, it would be interesting. I don't want to, if it's going down a rabbit hole of, you know, hours of work to get it, then no, obviously, it's not worth it. But if it's something that's on a spreadsheet that could be, you know, popped off, that would be nice to see. That was just that. And then,
That's usually one of the only ones, that and the workers' comp number, they don't get charged till the end. And I know that workers' comp is going to be, so we budget 131,742 and it came in at 130,186, so a little under. But
right.
that'll get charged. I think in May.
And then 33030, the professional employee training and development, BOE, we still have almost 92% of that. Is that
'Cause we're in a
money that's
freeze.
used on the professional? Well, that's because we're on a freeze. Okay.
Yeah.
So it would have been discretionary things that could have been planned.
Right, that's for, you know, for teacher, but I mean, really, how many conferences are there really going on
Oh,
right
that's
now?
conferences and whatnot. Okay, yeah.
Sure, they're free. So that funding, when we budgeted pre-COVID, was for teachers to attend conferences
Right.
and professional development.
So that could be end of year money that's available. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's probably the answer to my other questions too, is the freeze. That makes sense. All right, thank you. Technology hardware line, I'm sorry, 73014. It's 30, almost 33,000. Does that include things like, if we needed to, some Chromebooks this year?
That's set aside for the Brownstone Wi-Fi project through the E-rate program that we had budgeted. So we actually decided to do the next round because we would get a larger reimbursement. We're still going to plan on doing it this year with this year's funds, but we're starting the E-rate 2021 cycle because it's a full 5-year cycle, more funding available to us. And it just made more, we lost out on a reimbursement because we didn't have enough projects to finish that. But like I said, we would get more money this time around. And the way they did E-rate this year, they're doing it district wide. So it's not specific to school. They would take your enrollment that you had, and that's the percentage allotment you would get. Now it's going to be going forward. You can kind of choose your projects as you would like, and the money will be there for that. So that the 33,000, I think 238 is tied up for the Wi-Fi project that we did say we were going to move forward with.
At Brownstone.
Yep.
Is that what you said? Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So Stephanie, I guess we'll hear from you a little bit later in the agenda, if that's okay, when we get to old business.
Yep.
And in the budget. Great. All right. If there are no other questions on that last financial report, we will move on to Ms. Lawson and the secondary school schedule.
Good evening again.
Hi again.
How are you? Lila, could you please unmute Mr. Toussaint, Mrs. Larson, and Mr. Hershon? They're going to be presenting with me this evening. So thank you. We're excited. We're excited to present to you tonight on the new secondary school schedule. It feels like one of the more normal things that we've done over the past year to 18 months. So I'm joined tonight by representatives from PHS and PAMS. We've had a joint scheduling committee, as well as Mr. Hershon, to share with you what really is the culmination of many years of hard work. I think some of the members of the board who've been on in the past have heard me talk about the high school schedule and the middle school schedule and what it needs, probably more times than you can count. We are super, super proud of the new schedule, and it has been worth all the time and effort and energy that has gone into it, both pre and post COVID. And I actually think the takeaway messages from COVID have actually helped us improve it even more. So I feel very confident about the schedule that we're going to share with you this evening. I want to thank all of the staff, the students, and the families who have persevered on this project. We've had student input pre-COVID going back to 2018. We've had parent surveys from our advisory groups, and then we were really given the opportunity to refine it this year as a faculty. So we now have a product that is provides us with the opportunity to personalize learning. It focuses on current and best instructional practice and vertical alignment. Lila, are you able to share the slides? Okay, so you can go to the next one, please, Lila. I'm not sure if it's Lila or Grace. Is it Lila? Okay. So the first thing I'd like to share with you are the drivers for change. And these are really the three primary reasons why we needed to take a look at the schedule. The first is that we were not capitalizing on all of the opportunities available to us being a shared middle school and high school complex. Having the same schedule allows us to use optimal resource allocation, to share staff, and to make sure that the through line from 7 through 12 is clear and articulate. It allows kids who need to accelerate to have the opportunity to do that, and it doesn't let the schedule get in the way. The second major driver for change is the need to personalize instruction. And you will see slightly different versions of this in the middle and the high school schedule. But the terminology is the win block. And this is something those of you in the elementary school world are familiar with. And this is what I need now. This allows an opportunity for individualized instruction, extension activities, social and emotional learning experiences, and a more equitable personalization of each child's experience. The third driver for change is the curriculum and instruction piece. Best practice in educational pedagogy today is really looking for longer than the 42-minute block. And many of the curricular changes that we've made over the past few years, the workshop model, the illustrative mathematics, the inquiry-based social studies, and the next generation science standards are looking for an opportunity in each class period to go deeper into the material. So having a longer instructional block, which is what you're going to see in the schedule, will really meet our needs for current educational pedagogy. Next slide. And these are some additional bonuses. These are addressed in the revision, things that have long been things we've had to overcome with creative scheduling that we've been able to control for in our new product. First of all, it standardizes the instructional periods. The long block instruction at the high school in the past, where one class was 84 minutes and the others were 42, was challenging from a variety of perspectives. It was challenging for kids, it was challenging for teachers to plan. We will also be increasing the frequency and the consistency of our advisory and our mentor program at both the middle school and the high school. And certainly with our commitment to the social and emotional needs of all kids, this is the vehicle to do it. Having a shared schedule eliminates conflicts with special schedules in either school. It builds in dedicated intervention and support time to all kids every day. It facilitates developmentally appropriate independence. My goal for high school kids is to be able to plan their flexible learning themselves by the time they're in high school, and those are good executive skills for college and beyond. This new schedule will reduce lost instructional time for pulling out activities like assemblies. We will have a block built in where we can do that. It will move our schedule at the high school from 8 periods to 7 periods, which will eliminate multiple study halls for some kids and replace it with a more structured time. Did I just hear somebody or no?
I
Oh,
think
sorry.
there's background noise.
Go back one more. There you go. It also allows us a structure for implementing student success plans. It allows us a structure to develop a middle school capstone project, which you will hear more about from Mr. Hirschon. And it really responds to a student need prior to COVID, that on the days when they were going 42 minutes, 6 in a row, it was overwhelming, and that they felt like they were on a hamster wheel. So again, this simplifies the schedule and allows for the time for kids to really go deep in their material, to breathe, to take stock of what they need to do, and to develop their own plans. So I'm going to transfer this over to my colleagues, Krista Larson from the high school and Corey Toussaint, to share the specifics of the work with you. Mr. Hirschon will finish up at the end, and then we'll be available to take any questions from the board. Mrs. Larson.
Hi, if you could go to the next slide, please. All right, so like Ms. Lawson said, the process has been a long journey. So it started a couple of years ago in the 2018-2019 school year, where a committee was formed of just high school teachers. So this committee reviewed the current or our old schedule, which Ms. Lawson had mentioned was that 42-minute period that consisted of 8 classes, where 3 were static to maintain some consistency with the middle school and to lock in our lunch waves, and 5 were this long/drop schedule. Well, it was evident through the work that the committee did that obviously changes need to be made. So we surveyed all the stakeholders, and we determined from our survey results that these 60-minute periods really were our sweet spot to meet the needs of those curricular changes and programming changes. The other idea that came out of the survey was this idea of that flex block for that individualized instruction. So the following year, in the 2019-2020 school year, we formed a blended committee of middle school and high school teachers. And this is where the real work really began. And we developed several different iterations of the schedule you guys are going to see tonight. At the end of last year, the committee reached out to all of the teachers and all of the students for feedback, and the schedule that we had proposed was really well received. Then COVID happened, and that put a little wrench in the plan. So this year, obviously, we temporarily tabled the discussion about scheduling, and we adopted an A/B block schedule. However, the committee reconvened at the end of 2020, and the schedule that you guys are going to look at tonight is the one that we finally settled on. We had to, adapt, and we had to readjust the schedule because we still needed to meet the required instructional minutes required by the state. So the final revision is the one that we're presenting tonight. We have reached out to all of the teachers in the middle school and the high school, and they're all on board. So if you don't mind just switching the slide, and I'll give you guys, before we do that, we did have a few constraints. In order to meet the developmental needs of each school, we had to take into consideration certain things like study halls. are not developmentally appropriate for middle school. However, they are at the high school. We also wanted to maintain that middle school model and the integrity of that, which exposes students to a variety of electives. So that was something we had to consider. We also had to stay within the length of our school day in order to prevent opening up contract negotiations and involving the union. And then we also wanted to maintain access to special programs like the Highlander Cafe at the high school, our well-developed music program. We considered students that attend the Hartford Academy of Arts, and then Project Lead the Way, just a few to mention. Okay, so the schedule. All right, so Mr. Bernard did a nice job of color coding. So you can see here in our schedule, and I'll just mention this because Corey's going to speak in a minute about the middle school. There are just a few minor differences between the middle school and the high school. So I'll just really talk to the high school. You'll see that it's a 6-day cycle. You'll see each day there are 5 classes. Each class is 60 minutes. So the biggest change here, the biggest shift is going from that 8-class schedule to a 7-class schedule. So students will sign up for 7 classes each semester. They'll meet 5 a day, so they'll drop 2. And then over the 6 days, over the 6-day cycle, they meet 4 times. Another big difference from the previous schedule is that these are 60-minute periods, not 42 minutes, which is great. It creates that longer block with fewer transitional minutes that we lose to, you know, any teacher knows, to opening a lesson and closing a lesson. Because we shifted, like Ms. Lawson said, from the 8 to the 7, we have removed study halls from student schedules. The only study hall you'll see is the one that is scheduled on day D during the 2nd block period. Okay, however, the students will have the opportunity during that win block in order to meet with teachers or receive that personalized instruction. It's an opportunity for them to get what they need now, whether that's enrichment or support or intervention or just a mental health wellness break. It also allows for equity amongst students, so it's a nice opportunity. The other thing I wanted to mention was you'll see that there's a built-in mentor class on day A. So this is something that typically takes away from class time. This is the first year we're meeting weekly in our mentor to allow for that social emotional learning to occur. So now it's built into the schedule and it doesn't take away from class time. And then the study hall that I'd mentioned on day D, I think there's a lot of opportunity in that. It offers the students either a study hall, or if we have some school-wide assembly, like the Deacon Miller Assembly, or some opportunity where we have to gather all the students together, it could live in that block. If we think, you know, beyond and we think outside the box, it might be a future place for a capstone class or something like that. I also provided a sample of a student schedule just to give you a little context. So if Mr. Bernard, if you want to switch to the next slide. This is filled in for a 10th grade high school student. And we spend a lot of time looking at student schedules because we do have new graduation requirements. We're looking at going from an 8-period schedule to a 7-period schedule. So we wanted to make sure that all the students' needs were met. So this happens to be of a student who's in band or chorus. So we looked at several different students. We looked at students that are in band and chorus all 4 years, and we wanted to make sure that they were able to receive all the classes they want. We looked at students with an IEP that needed guided learning. We wanted to make sure that their needs were met, and it works. And I don't believe I have another slide. Mr. Bernard, is there a teacher slide or is it?
Yeah, you have one more.
One more, the teacher, okay, the teacher one. So here you can see, if we look at a high school math teacher, You'll see the different classes. This teacher has Algebra 2, period 1, Algebra 2, period 2. Third period, they're teaching PVLA 7th grade math. And then advanced geometry, 2 periods. So you can see how that plays out. Any questions before I turn it over to Mr. Toussaint?
I am wondering about the mentor class, day A. Is that like similar to a homeroom? Are they meeting with an older student? How does that work?
So it's a small group class where they meet with the teacher. So I have, maybe 10 or 11 students, and I meet with them each week. And there's a lot of different things that live in mentor. So there's the social emotional learning component. Capstone will live in mentor when they get into their junior and senior year. This is an opportunity for guidance to meet with them and go over their student success plan. So there's a lot that lives in mentor, but they do meet with a teacher and they stay with that teacher all 4 years.
Oh, wow.
Any other questions?
And there'll be time for more questions at the end of the presentation.
All right, over to Corey.
All right, so if we could move to the next slide, you'll get a look at the middle school schedule. This should look very familiar because it models the high school schedule almost directly with a few minor changes here and there, which I'll talk about. Really, I'll just sort of reiterate a great point that I know a couple individuals have made already, which is that it achieves some wonderful 7-12 alignment, allowing for shared staff and shared spaces. The middle school sees numerous amounts of staff members who are considered shared staff or have shared spaces. So this was gold to them for sure, because it really achieves that on a high level. The major difference at the middle school level is that static block in the middle of the day, which serves as the high school win period, but for the middle school would be utilized as a teaching block, keeping us at 8 teachable blocks. As you can see there, rather than it being divided up almost evenly between a lunch and a win period for the students, it's going to be divided up between a lunch period and a static block period. Now, this static block at the middle school will serve to maintain some core programs in the middle school, which relied on daily contact, which includes things like our music program, some of our support programs, and our computer science course, which is responsible for creating the middle school yearbook. But just because the static is a teaching period, it does not mean that student flexibility is not present in this schedule. There will be win blocks for students, which will exist in that static block, along with potentially in the normal block rotation. The second additional block at the middle school that you'll see where it says advisory, and then actually it says study there. It says study as a placeholder, but there really are some sort of a variety of things that could potentially end up landing in there. Specifically for 8th grade, there is the need for us to ingrain a capstone experience like has been talked about, and that would be a wonderful place for that to potentially be. Some executive study curriculum for a 7th grade student could find its way in there, and some social emotional learning and the ability for our social emotional staff to interact with our students without disruption to the students' daily schedule is essential. I do want to reiterate that while it says study in there, that's more a placeholder. It will definitely not be a study hall, an hour-long study hall for students. It instead will certainly be a capstone experience for our middle school students, for our 8th grade students, while our 7th grade students definitely will have alternate win type of activities, which can include getting them ready to be middle schoolers in our secondary complex. So that really is the main difference there at the middle school. We can move forward to the next slide. I believe there is a student schedule that is posted in there. And this is just an example of a student who would potentially be an 8th grader who takes both band and chorus. So as you can see there, their schedule looks very similar to what a high school schedule would look like in terms of the block shifting, except that you do see that extra course inside of that middle block period where they would potentially have band and chorus. And the courses that would operate inside of that static block most of them, not all of them necessarily, but most of them would operate typically on an every other day schedule, which is why we needed that static block. We have courses which are dependent on that every other day schedule. So a student would have a class A, C, and E, and then another class B, D, and F, and would sort of switch off every other day to meet their curricular and programming needs at the middle school. That is essentially the only real main significant difference. I will reiterate the awesome concept that we have a built-in block both for advisory, which is so essential at the middle school age, but also a block that's in there that's designed to make it so that disruptions in the schedule are less impactful. Things like assemblies being inside of those blocks are crucial. Whether there's other school-wide initiatives, which could include testing blocks or things like that. Having those be present there is going to be really, really essential to keeping a consistent schedule for our students and for our staff, which was very well received. So that is it for sort of my spiel on the middle school side. Mr. Hershon, I think it's over to you now.
All right, thank you so much, Corey. And while I want to point out that this past schedule is an example of a kid with band and choir in 8th grade, the reality is that that static block, for those that don't have band and choir, can simply be used as the wind block similar to this high school. And I want to go to the next slide, which kind of tells you, as a Board of Ed, what is Portland getting out of all of this, change? We talked about our reasoning for wanting to make this change and the challenges we saw that drove us to move forward. So in doing this schedule, we developed that sweet spot of 60 minutes as our instructional period. We took a hard look this year as we came into COVID times, and we'd say, hey, we have an aligned schedule now, these 87-minute blocks 4 times a day. We wanted to evaluate before we go and make a very complex schedule with this access to win, how do we like how this year is going? And the reality is 87 minutes every day for each class seemed like just way too much, especially for our middle school students who get antsy after that period of time. So 60 minutes really was that sweet spot, but we were able to accomplish that with this schedule. The flexible time, you'll notice in both the win time that as identified at high school and the static block in the middle school, it provides for opportunities for flexible time, which is ensuring an environment that allows for more equitable instructional practices. Specifically focusing on ensuring students are getting what they need, whether that is more intervention support, whether that is a tier 2 class or tier 2 support, whether that is an extension opportunity. It ensures that we can meet individual student needs by having the ability to flex around groupings, flex our offerings, and flex the type of work we are doing at those different times of the day. The implementation of our clubs and activities, having access possibly during that time, or ensuring that teachers, when a test has not gone well, have the opportunity to directly meet with students that don't require them to stay after school, for those that don't have the ability to get transportation easily, but truly have built into the schedule a way to respond when we're seeing that a student is struggling. The full alignment for these instructional blocks will significantly help our ability to staff our building in the most appropriate setting, ensuring that our middle school students are getting full access to the incredible high school that we have right next door, with all of the curricular offerings for our students, especially as they take on new advanced offerings in mathematics and in STEM. Provides an alignment from our counseling standpoint, allows alignment for our unified arts staff, so that we can truly build a 7-12 program as a secondary complex. Finally, that built-in advisory and mentor period is key. One of the board goals that you had identified this year was trying to ensure that we support and focus on our social emotional learning of our students. Increasing advisory this year from once a month to once a week has paid significant dividends, especially during this time of trauma and crisis that students have been going through. We want to continue to take that learning from implementing the social emotional directed learning throughout the year more consistently and utilize that to benefit our schedule going forward. Having this block built in will allow us that we don't have to have a Wednesday schedule change or a shift in program. Those open blocks, as both Krista and Corey mentioned, have a lot of potential for what they could be doing, the ones that aren't for mentor advisory, whether that's bringing in an outside organization to provide some volunteer programming opportunities, like a junior achievement for financial literacy, or increasing our cap opportunities for middle schoolers to engage in a capstone, which is my full intention for next year, to ensure that all 8th middle school students exiting middle school exit having completed a capstone that caps off their middle school experience, so they could explain how their middle school experience contributed to their vision of a graduate. Ultimately, this schedule will allow us to better facilitate the goals and objectives that Charles identified and you have identified as a board. It allows us to facilitate those within our schools to ensure that we are graduating students that are prepared for success outside once they have exited Portland Public Schools. With that, the whole group here is ready to take any questions that you might have. And we are excited to do so.
Lila, you can stop sharing the screen right now if you'd like. Sorry, Tim.
Oh, that's right. So when is this projected to be implemented?
September.
Yep,
Yeah,
we are
next school
projected to
year.
implement it starting next year. Oh, the last thing I wanted to say in terms of the biggest benefits of this change, it is quite a large change to make that scheduling shift. The one huge benefit for how it was done with the expertise of all the staff members involved is it does come to you with a cost of $0.00. This is a cost that was done within the structures that we have in place. So it is ready to be implemented start of school year for 2021, 2022.
That was my second question.
And I was of the impression this is actually going to be saving the district some money by being able to cross-utilize faculty, correct?
Absolutely, Lauren.
It could, especially over time.
Yeah.
So I think this is really fabulous. Upon first look, it's very complicated. It's actually a lot like my high school schedule was. I grew up on Long Island, Chuck.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we had it was 8 periods, but it was rotating, and periods 4 and 5 were static. And so we rotated periods 1, 2, 3, and 6, 7, 8. So to me, it makes sense. It kind of brings back memories and the confusion of what day is today? Do I need my flute? Do I need my gym shoes? So I expect there'll be some of that. But I think you guys did a really, really great job. And I'm really excited to see how these 60-minute blocks work for everybody. So thank you very much.
Yeah. And I think seeing it on that 6-day glance can be a confusing thing at first. One thing that I really want to point out, this is not just the work that we finished this year. It really does build off the shoulders of what was the foundation that was laid last year. And the biggest thing is, how will students recognize the schedule? And last year, they handed out a similar version. It was actually an 8-day rotation at that time. So it was the 6. Handed it to students, and they comprehended it quite quickly. It was something that seemed to make sense for them in the fact that we made it very clear. You have 7 periods and we are dropping 2 each day. And each day we're letting you know which 2 you are dropping. But looking at it on the full 6-day rotation can be confusing, but thinking of it simply as you have 7 periods, but you only have 5 of them each day on a single day basis is a way for students to stay connected to it. It certainly will come with reiterating in our announcement what's today's schedule like, especially as we start this transition. But one of the, I would say, interesting benefits of this time of distance learning this year is how much our students have had to improve their organizational skills as a whole. And we've seen that tremendously. So I'm highly confident in our students' ability to comprehend and move forward with the schedule.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your listening. We're pretty proud of our work.
Thank you.
As
Yeah,
it
I
should
can,
be.
I can remember when this conversation started, so I'm quite impressed. My head just swims. I can't remember my schedule from high school. I won't even tell you how long ago that was. A couple lifetimes maybe, but it's impressive.
Should be. It's great work. I just have a quick question. Given the research that says high school students need to start later, I assume that discussion was had and you went with the 7:45 start time. So that's okay. Just wondering how that conversation went.
It's interesting, Meg, because that was the first presentation Philip asked me to do when he hired me 6 years ago.
I
Was to
remember.
talk about that. And the research is sound. It is something that until we make the shift as a region or a state,
Right.
we won't be able to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I
Agreed.
I was fortunate enough to be part of a group similar that investigated this work. It seemed like over the past 3 years, a number of districts started their investigation into start time. And unfortunately, no one wanted to make that first one to jump to that
Right.
change because it is something that will need to come with a region-wide shift because it involves the change in athletics, change of transportation routes, well, quite a big shift. But yes, you're right. The research is clear on that. That's something that larger conversation for the state going forward.
I think there's a study group somewhere up there that's working on it. The other comment or the other question I have is we had talked about moving sixth grade up to the middle school. Has that been considered and how that would impact a schedule, or would that be a totally different schedule as an elementary school schedule? And was that ever taken into consideration?
I'll say in this iteration of it, we did not schedule in sixth graders because that would also come with a discussion of how would that be staffed. However, in terms of the structure of the day, certainly in terms of the academic structure that a sixth grade middle school student would need to get follows a similar structure and would be able to follow that similar structure of the 60-minute instructional period. Again, those same priorities of ensuring that mathematics through illustrative or the reading writing workshop program can be implemented in longer blocks of time would certainly be relevant to any upcoming sixth grade that would be in the building. Their schedule was not put in place as a model because we don't necessarily know what the nuts and bolts of a staffing change would be that come with that, but certainly is something that would be workable within this schedule.
Well, that's good to know. Thank you. Thank you. Nice job.
Any other questions? No, thank you again.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Okay, next is Director of Curriculum, Instruction and Technology. Hi, Eric.
He's not unmuted. Oh, there he is.
Oh, you're muted again.
Okay. Think you guys got me now?
Yeah.
Yep, we can.
Okay. Good evening, members of the board. I would just like to start quickly by giving a shout out and acknowledgement to the scheduling committee at the middle and high school. I came into the work late and mostly as a consultant just to make sure that we were aligned to state requirements for instructional minutes. I know how hard the work is that they've been engaged in for a long time on this and how difficult in general it is to redo and revise schedules. I love the schedule they've developed. I'm excited for what it means for our students, and I'm just so impressed with their presentation tonight. So well done, guys. I have 4 quick updates for the board tonight. I promise to be quick. The first is in regards to state standardized testing for this spring. So the state position right now is that we are moving ahead with all required spring standardized assessments as we do in any normal year, knowing that this year is far from normal, but we are moving ahead with testing. There is at this time no federal waiver flexibility for testing as we had last year due to the pandemic. There is a limitation in there. The state is working out along federal guidelines the finer details of accountability measures as to relate to assessments this spring. So we know we're not going to be kind of under the full accountability microscope for these assessments as we typically are. And we know that already in terms of student achievement on these assessments. What we're waiting to find out is accountability around participation thresholds. If we're still required to have a minimum of 95% of our students participate in standardized assessments, as is the case with a typical year. That's not something we have control over. It's by federal guideline that the state adheres to. It really won't change our plans or our intent, which is to administer assessments to as many students as we can. And our thinking there is that we value the data that comes from standardized assessments. We use it to inform instruction. And I'm going to be talking a little bit later about our summer learning intentions, and our assessment data from these spring standardized assessments will be used to inform summer learning opportunities for our students, along lines of whatever data we can get our hands on ahead of the summer. And the state has improved the timeframes recently, with which we typically get this data back so that we have it in our hands now by the end or immediately after the end of the school year, in time to still get kids in for summer learning as needed. We're ready to go with sending testing letters out to our parents this week, informing them of test schedules. Our principals have worked hard to develop those. And an important tool that's been released by the state for smarter, balanced, and NGSS testing is a remote proctoring tool. So we are going to have the ability to test our PVLA learners at home in a way that's secure, in a way that allows us to grab valid data about their learning, and make instructional decisions for those kiddos too, who we know, have been especially challenged not being in for in-person learning this year. Just as a reminder, our state standardized assessments are the Smarter Balanced Assessment, which is administered to all students in grades 3 through 8 in the areas of literacy and mathematics. The Next Generation Science Standards Assessment, which is administered to all students in grades 5, 8, and 11. The Connecticut School Day SAT, which is administered to all juniors, and our AP exams. Those aren't state standardized assessments necessarily in that they're required, but we offer them to all students enrolled in AP courses, and the College Board is proceeding with AP exams this spring. Let me pause there. Are there any questions about assessments? Okay, I'm going to move on to just a quick update for PVLA. The last time I updated the board at our previous meeting, we were hoping that at this meeting, we would be under 200 students in PVLA. That would be our low mark for the year. And we were right there, but we had a lot of students in process of returning to in-person instruction. At the time of the meeting tonight, we are down to 186 students in PVLA, and that is down from a high of a little over 220 students at the beginning of the year. So we have seen a lot of positive traffic of students coming back to in-person learning. We're very happy about that. Our lowest grade level in PVLA, our lowest class sizes right now in our K-8 model, class sizes run a little bit differently. They're by course at the middle and secondary level, is 13 students. So we're still not in a place where we can talk about making changes to PVLA or, but it's the traffic is moving in the right direction in terms of getting kids back in person.
Right.
Any questions on PVLA?
No.
Okay, my third of 4 updates is on summer learning, which Dr. Britton had mentioned. So we are beginning to plan, and the news of incoming me is activation in terms of what it means for this program. An extended or an enhanced summer learning program that goes above and beyond our typical offerings. I want to kind of explain the purpose of this summer learning program. It's going to be to accelerate. I don't want us to use the idea of remediation or deficit thinking when we think about learning loss, but kids who need a little bit of an extra boost to be ready to go next year. It's not that they're skill deficits. I think we need to think about it as, those skills have been delayed or stalled or slowed because of the pandemic. And we believe that through a program of acceleration this summer, we can catch them up. So our purpose is to accelerate learning for those students who've been most affected during the pandemic and who may be behind in skills necessary for success at the onset of the 21-22 school year. This is to be done in combination with all of our teachers revising the opening units within next year's course or grade level curricula. What that means in short is we know that we can't start in the typical starting place next year. If the typical starting place on day 1 is in unit 1 of a course or grade curricula, we know that we need a pre-unit 1. We need a unit that bridges what students may not have gotten to given our more limited curriculum coverage this year. We've advertised a 2/3 curriculum coverage this year, and gives them enough exposure to what they may have missed to be ready for success for the true onset of the next grade level or course curricula. So our targeted populations in this mix are those students who typically don't qualify for our extended school year program that we typically offer. And the extended school year program primarily serves students with IEPs, our special education populations. So outside of those students, we're looking at students who are what we're going to determine to be within range of grade level reading performance in grades K to 8. And I don't mean at the usual starting point of what we would consider grade level readiness for September, but within range might be within a reading level or two of that typical starting point. So students who fall outside of that range would qualify for this summer learning acceleration, knowing that they're going to need a little bit of a boost to get to quote unquote within range. Also along the same line, students not within range of expected grade level math performance. And again, this idea of we're adjusting what we consider to be the entry point of within range. So the key data points there for us are standardized assessment data. That data tells us and allows us to kind of shift what we consider the range and anticipate who may be falling outside of it and plan an accordance summer learning program. Outside of K-8 at the high school and middle school, in a typical year, we send students across the bridge to Middletown for credit recovery. These are students who've fallen behind the pace of graduation and need to make up courses in a traditional summer school setting. Middletown did not offer this to Portland students last summer because of COVID, and we need to move forward with a couple of anticipations. One, that they may not offer it again for students outside of their district, and two, that we're going to have an increased number of students needing credit recovery due to complications caused by COVID, disruptions to their learning, issues with social emotional well-being that may have prevented them from passing their courses in increased numbers this year. So we want to offer at our high school course options for students who are needing credit recovery, who've fallen behind graduation pace, to catch them up, anticipating that Middletown wrinkle and anticipating that we may have increased numbers of students needing credit recovery. Additionally, those are our key priorities. Our wishes, and we really, really want to make these happen, are increased arts programming and opportunities over the summer. Arts programming has taken a huge hit because of the pandemic. I'm talking about ensembles not being able to practice and perform together. I'm talking about art students who've had to make tough decisions about which credits to forego because of PVLA or other enrollment realities that they're facing. So we'd like to offer our middle and high school students summer music experiences in band and chorus, our middle and high school art students summer arts opportunities, and our middle and high school theater students potential summer theater experiences on our campus. This can all be made possible, we're hopeful, with the funds that we're set to receive from the government to assist in these types of programs. I want to add one additional lane. Social emotional well-being for a lot of these kids, it's been a difficult thing for them to maintain, to sustain, in these challenging times. Kids are resilient, but we know that this is hard on everyone, and it's hard on kids. We know that we've had a lot of kids that have been away from their peers for a long time. So I think we're going to have to look strategically at using the money we bring in to either expand what we might just call socialization experiences for kids this summer, or really engaging our community and expanding our partnerships with Parks and Recreation and youth services to allow students to just be around their peers, hopefully in an environment that's safe, in which some of our mitigation strategies can be relaxed because we've crossed a threshold of COVID threat. And a lot of this obviously is going to be determined in the months ahead, but this is what our kids need. And given these funds that we're likely to receive, we're well positioned to give them the type of summer programming that meets those needs. So I'm excited to continue building these options and hopefully receiving the funding to make it happen this summer for our kids. I'm happy to pause there and take any questions.
Eric, will the art and theater and band and chorus programming that you're talking about and the potential social experiences, will these be things that are available to all middle school and high school students, or just the students who are also needing to do the credit recovery?
The arts programming is less about credit recovery. The arts programming is more with the acknowledgement that kids, arts programming is taking a hit. The arts experience. I don't want to say the programming, because our teachers are still there and they're doing incredible work delivering arts programming, but it is a version of arts programming. And I think our art teachers, our music teachers, they would all tell you that. And so given an opportunity here to make up for what is partially lost experience, I would want to keep that open to as many students as possible. That's less a credit recovery issue and just what our artists need.
Great.
and deserve. And the
I
same
think
with the
The Little
recreation and
Mermaid.
socialization activities. That's right.
Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, I've got my last update is just a quick update on our equity work. So we spent the day, our Equity and Inclusion Coalition Steering Committee, which is comprised of myself and our 2 equity coordinators for now. That steering committee is likely to expand once we get the coalition fully up and running. We met with the guidance of our consultants from Connecticut Center for School Change and hammered out our 25% membership. That was a brutal conversation. We had over 50 interested applicants. So there's a dark and unfortunate irony that with an inclusion coalition, we're having to exclude some. But that's because we've strategically capped this coalition at 25 people with a very defined makeup by representation group, community members, student parents, BOE members, administrators, certified staff, again, under the guidance of our consultants who've done this work in many, many districts. I'm proud to say that we do have 2 Board of Education members who will be serving on this committee, and we had more interest than that. So these were difficult discussions. We've landed on Tim and Lauren will be the Board of Ed representatives. And I know there was more interest than that. In a perfect world, I wouldn't have to turn anyone away from this work. I would remind the board that there is plenty of work to do along these lines, and the coalition will be making many suggestions to the Board of Ed of meaningful work that this group can take up around policy and around organizational structures that advance equity. So there's a lot of opportunity. I wish I could give more. Our first meeting is set for March 9th from 4:30 to 7 p.m. Our first 3 meetings will really be focused on building this coalition community and getting us to the place of developing and really nailing down a district equity stance and our core beliefs about equity. Those can't be implied, those have to be explicit, and those really become the anchor for the equity work that we take on across our district, within the coalition and across the district.
So Eric,
I'm really excited for that work.
sorry,
Yep.
didn't mean to interrupt you. Are those will be similar to this? They'll be on Zoom or something so people can watch, or is that going to be a closed process? Or
that's a good question, Sharon. So they are closed processes, and it's just due to the nature of the work, but we are planning to be absolutely transparent. So we will be making meeting agendas available, and at the conclusion of every meeting, we'll be making a synopsis of the meeting publicly available. Because of the nature of the work, it's not appropriate to give every detail, but we will give an accurate synopsis.
Okay.
And there'll be plenty of opportunity for public involvement. That's a goal of the coalition.
so would it be appropriate?
And then really quick, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just wondering, would it be appropriate for the board to ask for you to give us an update on your work every so often at a board meeting?
Yeah, so we have monthly coalition meetings, and I present once a month. So I will present every time I present to you guys a synopsis and an update of where the coalition is.
Right.
Great, thanks.
Okay. 2 other quick items. I had kind of heavily advertised throughout the district, more along the lines of individual education, an individual educational opportunity that the YWCA in New Britain is running a 21-day challenge on racial equity and social justice. I want to thank Meg. She's the one that brought that to my attention. All I did was turn it out to the district and encourage people to get involved, to sign up. It's free of charge. You don't have to do all 21 days. No. There's a lot in each day. So it's there, do what you can. I just encourage again in this forum, anyone to get involved. And then to support engagement in that challenge, I'm facilitating some debrief discussions once a week throughout the duration of the challenge, just for people to get together and kind of have a space to process the learning. If you have any questions about that, let me know. And then we do have an upcoming PD on March 12th that will likely be affected by our vaccine plans, but we do plan to provide teachers additional opportunity to learn about matters of equity and inclusion, and that continues work that we started at our previous PD day on February 16th. That's my update tonight. I'm happy to take any questions.
No other questions? Thank you
Nice
for
job.
that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Old business we will move on to, and we are back to Stephanie. Portland Board of Ed fiscal year 2022 budget modifications. That was the memo you were referring to earlier, is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
So does everybody have
Stephanie.
that?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
So does anybody have any questions on what I presented here? These are usually the changes that as we go through, when if cuts need to happen, or as we're, looking over the budget, things come in after the fact. The resignations, the medical, we find out numbers later on after the budget process has completed and been put through. We felt that bringing forward this new percentage of 3.12 to the town would be fair, in trying to work with them and everybody in bringing a fair, like I said, a fair budget to the town and for everybody else. These are just the usual cost savings. If anybody has any questions on any of them, I can hopefully answer them.
Can you talk to us about the decision about the Chromebook funding and where that's coming from and how that's affecting the replacement cycle? I mean, the lease cycle that we had discussed so much.
Yep. So if you actually saw in the town released budget yesterday, they're actually combining them in with a larger lease program that the town is taking on, and they're going to take on the 4-year lease program in capital.
Oh, nice.
So we moved
Oh,
it
are they
onto that,
really?
onto the town side, if it passes, but that's what they're proposing to do. And if
That's
you
part of
read,
the town's 4.75 increase.
if you read the letter in the beginning of their budget, it explains it in there.
Right.
Of what they combined together and included the Chromebooks in with that. So that will get us the 500 that we need for the 4-year lease program.
I would imagine that would be a little bit more economical for everybody
will.
involved. They handle it that way in a larger package, Stephanie, would you think?
Yes, yes.
They're going to put
And
the
I
lease.
think that's why they opted to do it that way.
They're going to put the lease into the capital budget.
Well, the
Well,
town
it's a
leases a lot
larger
of stuff.
program.
Yeah. Like
And
the
that's
fire
how they do it
trucks.
from the capital budget?
Yes. That's
Oh,
how they
okay.
fund the lease.
Oh.
Well, they do it with copiers, so I think it makes sense for the town to do it. And then that way, we're not having to ask them to take a lease out in our name when they are going to pay the bill. I think it makes sense. I think it's a good move.
Yep.
It's a
Well,
win-win.
it makes sense only if it gets approved. I mean, that's a separate budget item that has to go to the capital committee,
Right.
and it has to be recommended forward, I suppose, right? Isn't it? It's part of the
It has to
budget.
go through the same process, yep.
What's that?
It has to go through the same process. So in hopes that it passes. But like Sharon said,
Yeah,
it's
it just leaves us with nothing if the board, I mean, it's funny, I mean, for me, this is the first time I read it in the memo earlier, but I didn't realize the change. I didn't read the town's budget letter yet.
I didn't have a
but-
chance to look at it either, but I can tell you, Tim, based on my experience, the stuff that gets put in with the fire trucks and the police cars usually makes it through.
Yeah.
That's a lock. Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Not a lock. I'm not saying anything's a lock. It's just much more difficult to cut. We'll put it that way.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'd be my only concern is we get left with nothing at the end of the budget process, and we don't move forward with the one-to-one technology renewal, which is I think is critical. So that's.
I don't think it's an option in any way, shape, or form. So, and again, it makes sense to put it in with other things that truly are not optional for our town. We need these just as we do the other things. that the town tends to fund through leasing in the capital budget. So I think it makes a lot of sense.
So does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I guess this is the part where we'll move on to the motions. I think that we would need to make a motion. And Charles did send an email out to board members with suggested language for motions, just to make things a little bit more
Yeah.
straightforward and direct.
Do you
Not
want
to
me to
put
do
words
them?
in our mouths in any way, shape, or form, but just a suggestion. It has everything in there that we need in there, in other words.
Yeah, well,
So-
I would make a motion to approve the reduction in the 2021-22 Board of Education approved budget by $185,798.43 from 22,602,10.43 to 22,416,212, resulting in a 3.1% increase over the fiscal year 2021 budget. The reduction is a result of cost savings in non-certified salaries, medical insurance, workers' compensation, and technology-software.
Oh, sorry, that's hardware at the end.
Hardware. Well, what did I say? Software. I'm sorry. Yeah, hardware.
That's okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it. Meg Scata.
Okay, any
That's
further
great news.
discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. Wonderful. Okay.
But that leaves us 0.12 over what the board of, or the first select woman recommended for us, right? If I understand correctly.
I don't know. I have not had an opportunity to look
Someone
at
who
it.
read it had said to me that I think the recommendation for the Board of Ed was 3% even. But I don't know that for a fact. I don't know if Charles,
Okay, well,
we
do you
still
know
have
that?
numbers.
Yeah, I don't
We
remember.
have
I mean,
in-
certainly 3% is I think viewed as pretty reasonable across the board.
Yeah.
okay,
That-
so
that,
we'll
you
have
know, anytime you're
opportunity to look
above
at that.
3%. Yeah, right. Yes, who you're talking to, right? But I think 3% is a good place to be.
Yep, so
we stay
as
there.
Charles indicated, our budget workshop with the Board of Selectmen is on the 16th, so we'll have an opportunity to go through and see what the proposal is that
It's
the
not our
first
workshop. I just wanted, it's not our workshop. It's their presentation of the budget. Our workshop, I believe, is
Oh.
later in the month.
It is.
Okay, thank you. Well, we can get started anyway. All right, so next we have the 2020-2021 district calendar changes that are proposed. Is there a motion as to number 1?
I make a motion, let me get to the sheet here. I'll make a motion to the Board of Education that that we approve the 2021 school calendar to make Wednesday, March 24th an early release day for the Portland High School only to accommodate students taking PSATs and SATs.
There's a second.
I'll second it.
Tim, all right. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. And the second change.
Sure, I'll make the motion to amend the Board of Education approved 2020-2021 school calendar to make Friday, April 9th an early release day to accommodate a second dose vaccination clinic for Portland Board of Education faculty and staff.
There's a second.
I'll second that.
Tim, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, great.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the superintendent of schools mid-year evaluation, which we will be discussing in executive session, hopefully not too far in the future, meaning later today.
Yes.
Committee reports, curriculum,
Nothing new.
okay, policy,
No, but we hope to have a date for hopefully the end of March. We were
Okay,
doing that.
personnel? Tim, would you like to report since I missed the last meeting,
Oh,
unfortunately?
sure. We met and we talked, well, I don't know how much I can get into. We talked about contract extensions and
Okay.
things that
Things
we
are
would
still
try
open.
and work forward on. And we talked about the, the bus
Great.
waiver and I know
Mhm.
Charles was going to make a presentation tomorrow to the board of selectmen about that. And I think it's
Good.
going to be a great overview.
Good. Building and grounds?
I'll comment if you
Go ahead.
want. We had our meeting on the 10th and we had the folks from Sightlines do their presentation that we saw and the Board of Selectmen saw so that the committee could, new members could all be brought up to speed on where we are in the baseline and I thought it was a great kickoff to the group. Meg, if do you have anything else to add to that?
No, but there's a meeting coming up this coming week.
Yeah.
So we'll have to be continued. It's an exciting time, and we're just again gathering information and we'll have more to report as we move forward.
Great. Conservation and Renewable Task Force?
No updates.
Okay. Correct liaison.
Hi, CREC did amend their constitution. The summary of changes basically eliminates the board of directors. It provides for an option for virtual council and committee meetings in the future. It allows officers which are serving as executive committee to take action in emergency matters. It eliminates a specified meeting schedule, and they'll adopt a calendar of meetings each year. And it establishes a quorum of 8 members. All the meetings that I've attended, there's usually about 30 of us, and they're from all over the region. So it's a large group, but a quorum is 8, and that will amend the Constitution and remove the board, which was the kind of governing body. And now always some questions about what CREC actually does. And it takes, like any board that you serve on, trying to figure out what we do or what we're supposed to do. Now, council members are Board of Ed members appointed by their individual boards of education who pay dues to CREC, who have a voting right. So there may be more conversation in the future about what we're actually doing at CREC. And they're going to be more informative as things move forward. So it's an interesting opportunity.
So just a quick question, Tim, when you were the liaison, and I know there was probably a little bit of overlap, but did they have in-person meetings since you've been the liaison, Meg, or did you start during the pandemic?
It's always
Started during
been
the pandemic.
Yeah.
It's always been Zoom meetings. I
Okay,
think I
so-
went to one CREC meeting when they had the day at the Hill, and that was in person.
Now
That
they
was it.
be all in person at what is it? I think it's High Ship Avenue. They
Yep.
have there.
Well,
So
that and yeah, state legislature too.
And then they changed it apparently after the COVID.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
going to
everybody-
remain virtual. I'm just trying to determine whether
No,
that
no.
quorum,
Go ahead.
whether the quorum number reflects the fact that very few people would attend those meetings when they were in person, or what? That's all.
Well, that's why they changed the Constitution a while ago, was because they had a hard time getting a quorum. It was a huge, you go in this huge room with this, huge table around it.
Mhm.
And so they had made a change in the Constitution that allowed them to work with a smaller number for a quorum. And that was, and now this, I think, takes it a step further.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that when they say that they provide an option for virtual council and committee meetings, we're all doing it because of the pandemic, but I think that they have looked at their bylaws, and I can check on this to be sure. They have adopted a bylaw which says that some committee members could be remote. And I'll find out when you ask about the voting, I'll find out how the voting, if voting, it can be done remotely as well. So there's a couple of good questions that I can ask.
Board of Selectmen? Nothing? Dave?
Oh, Board of Selectmen, just the
Yeah.
bus that we already touched on. So
Okay.
to be revisited next, or tomorrow night.
Okay. Good enough. Task Force on Solidarity. Tim?
Oh, so the Task Force on Solidarity, yeah, they had their forum on February 22nd, where Charles and I think it was Charles and Eric and I was there as well. Although the questions that they had questions for the the law enforcement and for the Board of Ed and for Board of Selectmen. They were really tailored to different aspects of town, official town government. I think certainly my sense was it was a really beneficial opportunity. I think it led to some really good discussion, and it got us on the same page in a lot of ways. The next meeting they have is March 9th, I know, and I'm not sure when they have another forum or anything scheduled.
So just a quick question on that. I know we have a lot still to get to, but I joined that forum later on in the process, and I just wondered, did they release the results of the survey?
I believe, yeah, they did. I know I saw it. I'm not sure if they posted it out publicly. I presume it must be available. I'm not sure through what means.
Okay.
But I could find out if I can
Yeah.
share it.
I
don't
didn't
see
have a
why.
chance to look, and I didn't know if I'd missed it because I had joined late. That's all.
It
There
wasn't.
was an information in the River East about it. The number, I was curious as to the number of responses. They didn't go into great detail, but this was more of a question and answer. You really found out a lot about how town government works and some aspects of government that you don't think about often. So the forum was quite good. It was quite long, but they did release some information in the River East on Friday.
April
Lauren,
said
Go
April
ahead.
said there were 170 responses, but that the actual results from the survey in a collated fashion would be released to the public later. I don't believe that's happened quite yet.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you for
Yeah, I
that.
know when the committee met and went over it, there was a lot there we were able to, as a
Yeah.
liaison, I was able to look at.
Nice.
Okay. Audience of citizens. Do we have anyone who'd like to address the board?
There is no one for audience of citizens.
Thank you. Board of Education member comments.
I just want to say, if you really want to learn about diversity and equity and slavery and all of the things that are going on at the YWCA in New Britain, it's a time commitment if you do the 21 days, but day 1 and day 2 are quite amazing, and really some videos, some podcasts, some short articles, and then there's a Facebook page with ongoing commentary, and I think they've gotten a pretty good response so far. So if you're, at least interested in some part of it, they're going to talk about reparations and slavery this week. And there's going to be thing about sports, and then it'll go on for 21 days. So the first 2 days were pretty fascinating. So if you get a chance, even just look at it, check it out. And then if you decide it's not for you, that's okay. But don't miss an opportunity to learn.
Is that the YWCA website?
It is, and
Okay.
Eric sent out the link, but
Yes,
I can
that's
send it
right.
out again.
That's
Yep.
right. I remember. Okay.
Yep.
Meg, thank you for bringing that to our attention through.
Well, I
via
found out
Eric.
about it. I
It's-
actually found out about it through CREC. Somebody mentioned it at the CREC Council, so I thought that was really a good thing.
The
The
resources
other,
the first couple days have been great.
yeah,
So
they
thank
have.
you.
The other thing I wanted to mention, I went down to Meriden on Saturday and I bought 2 mugs that have a saying on them that says apple pie and rice and beans. And it's a quote from Miguel Cardona, who's now the new Secretary of the Cabinet. And so I'm going to bring those 2 mugs over to Charles, and perhaps they can use them as incentives for kids or for teachers who are maybe participating in the 21-day program. But it turns out that his cousin, Kathy Motorola, I believe her name is Motorola, she's his cousin, and she was the one who designed the mug and got them made. And they're doing a fundraiser for scholarships. And so I'm going to I wanted the mug because I just thought it was kind of cool now that we have the Connecticut representative down in Washington, D.C. fighting for education. So I'll drop those off for Charles and he can do with them what he wants, but we can use them as prizes or whatever. So
Great.
yeah, exciting.
Okay. Any other comments from the board?
I just wanted to say a quick thank you to Charles and to Eric as well for how well you represented the Portland Public Schools at the town forum last week through the Solidarity Task Force forum. I thought both of you spoke really well. I was pleased with how the school district was represented. And I was, you know, just really happy to hear the real talk from both of you about where we're at and what we're working towards, and your commitment to increasing diversity in our hiring, to seeking that out in an active way. All of that I thought was just, it was honest and you know, accurate, and I appreciated all of that, all of what you said. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. If there are no other Board of Ed member comments, I'll entertain a motion for executive session. Inviting Mr. Superintendent to join us, I suppose.
Make a motion, we go into executive session and we invite the superintendent. And the purpose of the executive session is for the superintendent of schools mid-year evaluation and discussion of pending claims and litigation.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Meg, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the time is 8:55.
Thank you all. We'll be back, but
We are opening the room now.
great. Thank you. Okay, looks like we're all back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 9:35.
Second.
Who
All in
said second?
favor?
Lauren.
Lauren. Okay, Lauren.
Aye.
Gotcha. All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Absolutely. Okay.
All right. Good night, Walton
Good
family.
night,
night.
everyone.
Good
Night, everybody.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Okay. Meg, I'm wondering, could you add me to